Welcome to the Modern Hippie podcast, where we'll be exploring all of my favorite boundary-pushing people and topics surrounding consciousness, psychedelics, mental performance, functional medicine, living in alignment, and so much more. I'm your host, Barrett Perlman, a former pro wakeboarder turned body worker, energy healer, and well, a modern hippie. And I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Modern Hippie podcast. I am joined again today by my now dear friend, Hamilton Souther, who is the founder of Blue Morpho Retreats, Ayahuasca Retreats. And I just got done spending about a week with you in the Peruvian Amazon doing ayahuasca.
Indeed. That was an incredible retreat back. It was our inaugural post 20 years retreat back since COVID shut us down for the first time in 19 years. And it was phenomenal. Just so grateful to have had that opportunity to have been able to meet you in person, experience ceremony with you, which was great. And obviously it's amazing to be back on your podcast. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining me. It felt like a must after that experience because I had done ayahuasca 3 times before I came to you. And everything I was hoping to learn from you, hoping to experience with you, you just like doubled down on and then raised it to like the power of 10. And so that was really exciting.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, we try to, always open up as much of the space as you can handle. And in this case, I mean, you were amazing in how much you could really experience and take in over those ceremonies. So it was sort of like, how deep can the ocean go and how far into outer space can we go all at the same time? And you were ready and you just had, absolutely massive acceptance for the experience and enjoyment and, embodiment of that experience. And so it allowed us to be able to, really push the envelope.
Yeah, well, it turns out that the ocean just continues to go deeper and deeper. Outer space continues to get more vast and more vast. It's pretty endless.
True. I think, there are people who get into ayahuasca ceremonies and the limitation is within themselves. And so they get scared or they run into some kind of barrier that needs to be purged. And then it takes longer, to go through that. And working with you is really all about embracing the experience even more. And, after that first ceremony, second ceremony, when you came out of it and said like, oh my God, if this is ayahuasca, wow, I didn't know that this could be my medicine that way, because your other experiences before that hadn't really, shown you this side of ayahuasca and the practices. And so I think that that's really when that love opens up for it and you fully embrace it, that's when it's a gift that can just keep on giving. And there's really no limit for how far it can take you and, how many teachings you can receive from it. I'm now, well over 1,000 ceremonies, 1,500 ceremonies into my practice. And it's a gift that just keeps giving. I mean, the last 14 sessions that I did in the last 2 to 3 weeks have been some of the most teaching sessions I've ever had and so incredible. So, just always is that amazing.
Yeah. And so what did you learn by taking 2 years off of doing ayahuasca?
Well, one, I learned that it's a medicine that works really well with me. So over those 2 years, I recognized a lot of the patterns, not coming back, but just being there, like different kinds of anxieties or angst with just work itself or some of the more tedious aspects of what we do. Sort of outside of my ceremonial work, I'm involved in technology companies and we're building NFT platforms and different Web3 applications. And so it's, very detail oriented on computers and stuff like that. And so, that can produce different kinds of anxieties or frustrations. And so just being in the balance with ayahuasca and it as a medicine is just fundamentally great for me. So one was just that reaffirmation of what an incredible medicine it can be, what an really like, just a miracle it is as a kind of plant medicine. And then also coming back showed me that over time, there is a natural maturation. Even being away from it, things actually improved and changed since I was, in the last 2 years away from it. And so that was incredible. So I don't know. I mean, it's more centered, just deeper in terms of my own personal experiences this last go around, and just the teachings again were just so profound. And so, a lot of that is about kind of what we're doing with Blue Morpho and how we're approaching our work with ayahuasca so that other people can also have that depth of experience over a shorter period of time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and after what I experienced, I don't ever want to take 2 years off now. I don't want to take 2 months. I don't want to.
Hopefully you won't have to. I
I
felt that
hope.
way. Yeah, I felt that way early on too. Once I got involved, I mean, 2 years was the longest period of time we had ever been away from it. The longest time before that had just been a couple months when we were in training and we would get to a place where we just knew that, okay, it's like we're saturated. We've had enough. Now we're going to go integrate this experience for a while. So it had never been, years and years and stuff like that away. That was just an advent from what happened with COVID and, sort of some circumstances associated with that. But it typically before we would have series of a month or two when we're working with it, and then 3 weeks to a month off, and then a month or two that you're working really heavily with
Mm,
it. There are other groups that are just sort of much more steady. They would just sort of like 2 ceremonies a week, 2 ceremonies a week, and kind of do that all year long. But we were always much more focused in it. So we would, have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ceremonies in a row. On our retreat in 5 nights, we have 4 ceremonies like you experienced.
mm.
And before a retreat, I'm always doing ceremonies to prepare for the retreat. So, in those periods of time, over a very short number of nights, we'll have 8 to 10 ceremonies. And by the end of it, you start to feel it. And you start to feel it in your body. It's in your cells. You can taste it. It's in your breath. It's really fully saturated through you. And so it's good to then take a little break and integrate that over a couple of weeks. And that's what we're doing now. Then we'll go back into the next part of our next training regime.
I can absolutely see that. I mean, I did ayahuasca once about 2 weeks before I came to your retreat. So that was like my third time I'd ever done it. So I didn't really feel lasting effects from that. But having done the 4 nights with you, I feel it. I feel it in me all the time right now. And I especially notice it when I'm sleeping or even
Mm-hmm.
falling asleep or waking up. I'm having these wild, I call them reactivations to recycle a word from sort of the Bufo language. But it's like it kicks back in when I'm sleeping and I'm having these profound dreams like I'm full blown back in the medicine. Like not even just partially, like I'm full blown in the medicine. I think the first night I was having this dream about one of the friends I met at your retreat. His name's Rob. He was like trying to teach me how to keep my powers in, and I was like this ball of light, and I was trying to keep it in. And if I didn't keep it in, I exploded and I got reborn, and I had to start all over again. Um, and then the next night I was like wielding like kind of like Spider-Man. I had like these webs that were attached to my hand that I could kind of mix the fabric of the universe, and I was learning to like pull it and wield it and like send my shockwaves out. And then I woke up and I was in the middle of a 5.0 earthquake in Lima. So I was like, shit, I think I did that. um,
Well, ayahuasca teaches you through the dream state and through that transitional state as you're going into sleep and coming out of the sleep. So a lot of people don't know it, but ayahuasca is a dream plant. And a lot of the training that we go through in the Amazon comes through the dream state. And so a lot of people think it's just the visionary state when you're under the influence of it, but it's not really like that. It's really more in the dream state. And so you use this grouping of ceremonies to then start that process that you're describing. And it really is a great time to be able to set intentions with it right before going to bed, because then in the dream state, your intentions will start to play themselves out. And there's all different kinds of, like you're saying, learning that goes on. And it's very applicable, like you're saying, moving different aspects of energy in the space and learning how to keep energy in. Those are all different kinds of teachings that are coming from ayahuasca, and they all end up becoming skills. And so we think of that as the more skills that you have, the more seasoned you are in the space, the more you can do, the more you can help others, the more you can guide and direct yourself. And it's really when you combine a lot of those skills over an extended period of time of practice that then you're considered a practitioner now to be able to help others. And we learn a lot of that in the dream space. And so, as you're experiencing that, you don't forget them, right? I mean, the dreams it's not like I had a dream and you forget it. It's like, no, these are lucid teachings. You come out of the dream
yeah.
space kind of like, whoa, what was that dream? That's wild. And then
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes, then it integrates into you, and then you check out how those skills are working in your next set of ceremonies. So,
Mm.
when we get an opportunity to be in ceremony again, then we'll start to work with all of those skills that you learned during the dream time, and we'll start to apply them in the ceremonies themselves. So, if you're
Mm.
moving energy around and you're able to use your hands and different kinds of webs of energy coming out of your hands, and people see that in the visions, the sacred geometry and everything. So now, if you're able to tap into that with your hand, now we'll start to practice that in the ceremony themselves, and see what you can do with it and see how we can up level that.
Yeah, that would be great because I apparently discovered in my fourth ceremony, it was like everything got unlocked. And so I'm a psychonaut, and my partner in crime through the whole retreat was also a psychonaut. And so he and I both took these massive cups of ayahuasca that you were like, you're going to send us deep into the depths of DMT. And it was like everything I knew about reality got unlocked. And at one point, I was like sending these lightning bolts around the room that other people told me the next day. They're like, "We're watching you send these lightning bolts." And I was like, "Oh shit." Like, I kind of like reached out and tickled the entire room. And started to get that first lesson of keep it in. Not everybody wants to be tickled all the time.
Well, in ayahuasca, it's like, when we're in a normal space, we think that the space between us separates us. But when we
Hmm.
get into ayahuasca, we start to see that the space between us is actually what's connecting us. And so the connection is like, it's just between you and me. All of that space, all of that air in that room is actually intertwined and connecting us all. And then our consciousness taps into it, right? Like we're like this big sender and receiver of frequency in the room itself. Now, in our normal daily life, we don't see it, but we know it's there because the radio waves are there, the light waves are there, the way the cell phone works and the internet is there. And those are all measurable expressions of energy. And people have done, measurements of energy in an ayahuasca ceremony, and there are shifts in the energy as the ceremonies continue and the people do different kinds of acts of energy work in the space. And so it is true that people have common shared vision, and that's one of the spaces that we're trying to create. And in this last retreat, I thought it was fundamentally amazing because of how deep everybody went into the experience and how calm everyone was able to get into that like really deep meditative calm and that massive interconnected space that you can also get through breath work or meditation. But then on top of it, now you add the ayahuasca, and it's just like Technicolor times a million. And it's, interconnection of energy and that field times a million in the way that we can experience it. And, the corroboration of that is how people saw you doing the energy work and the lightning and things like that. So as the ayahuasca was teaching you, they were also experiencing that and learning that in their own way. So I just, it's just phenomenal.
Oh, it was so phenomenal. It was like you created this nest that we were all in, and in that second cup on the fourth night, because obviously I had to go back for more. Um, Everything unlocked, and everyone in the room could feel each other through our minds. Like I could tell what someone was doing across the room, not even being able to see them, and that was how everyone in the room felt. And you could even feel like the breath of the jungle around us. You could feel its heartbeat. You could feel every bird as it fluttered by. You could feel the wind. I could feel the butterflies. It was like all of a suddenly everything made sense into how this world was operating and source was operating. And I mean, the messages I got in that space were profound, and about my mission and my purpose here, and how just source is just prepared to support me in all of it, and is just sort of like surrender. That continues to be the ongoing word. Just surrender. So
Surrender is a great word. I mean, I think that that's key for ayahuasca. There's this idea of submitting, but I don't think that that's really right. I think it is an idea of surrender, and you don't give up your autonomy. You don't give up who you are. You don't give up your ego. You open it. You open it, and you transcend the negative characteristics or qualities that might be holding you back. And then as we do that, one of the things that I'm doing in the ceremony is facilitating that connection. So we're harnessing the power of nature. So it's not just there and we're bystanders of it, just looking around. We're not just bird watching. We're actually getting into nature and drawing nature to us and learning how we're
mm,
connected with it and really receiving it and opening our senses to being even more receptive to it. And then inside that great field of nature, there's all of this helping energy. So the helping plants, the doctor plants, the healing plants, the medicinal plants, the animals that are there that want to help us, and all the sounds that they make and their presence. And you know
Mm,
as the visions turn on, then you get to see them in their vision area regalia, which is even brighter than their feathers for like the macaws and the birds and the hummingbirds. It's even more iridescent, and the rainbows that come out of them, and in these sort of interdimensional fractals and everything is just, it's unbelievably beautiful, right? And then in that beauty, that opens us up, and our heart opens up, and our love opens up, our compassion opens up. And then so we have that connection that's supporting us. Like, I really like that word you use, that nest, right? Because it's this contained space that we're in that's safe and protected, and we can let go, and we can surrender, and we can open up, and we can trust the ayahuasca, and we can trust nature. And then that allows us to open up all of our incredible capacities that typically are like held within, bound up within us. And we don't get to experience that in our typical normal daily life. Right. And so then we open that up, and then the chakras open up, and then Kundalini energy can
mm,
flow. And then when that opens up, the heart can, blow wide open, even bigger than the body. And then that infinite love and connection with source becomes palpable. It's not just an idea where we know source is everywhere, but we're actually experiencing source everywhere, and source is in us and
mm,
all around and interconnecting everybody. And that's just like the greatest way to be able to share knowledge and energy that's possible. Like, source is the field. So when we get into that source consciousness, and then that field opens up for us, then all of that becomes possible. And so to hear that you had that experience is both phenomenal and incredible for everyone else to know that it's possible for them to have it too.
mm. Yeah, and I work with psychedelics. I work with psilocybin, and I've done Bufo recently, and it was actually sort of comparable to some of the results on Bufo, but just for such an extended period of time, and exactly what you described. Like, I at least I think on the second ceremony, or maybe even, I don't know, third or fourth, doesn't matter. I blew wide open. Like, I became completely unlocked, and I realized that I'm not a being of love and light, just that I am love and light, and I am source. And now it's given me a whole new twist even on like manifesting, because I actually feel like a creatrix instead of a manifester. Like I feel like being a creatrix gives me more control over what's happening, but also by the deeply surrendering, and now I'm able to make these like profound requests of source. And I got a lot of my play back. I mean, I played a lot, but now I just feel like a baby lion cub, like rolling all over the place and frolicking all day. And like my energy feels like a swallow in the air, ducking and diving with another swallow. And it's profound. All these people are coming into my peripheral to play, right? People are getting goosebumps around me. They're like, your energy is so infectious and wild right now. Um, but that's now I'm like creating with that energy, and I'm like, oh, source, I didn't know it could be so good. Like, okay, how about some more of that, and how about some more of that? And I can't wait to see how you're going to make that happen. I surrender.
But I love the idea of you creating, right? We were taught, like you said, like, I'm a being, and I, petition spirit, or I petition God, or I petition source, or I have to pray to source, or I have to pray to God. And I like the idea of that being transcended to that idea that we are creator. We are creators. We are source. We are capable of making these changes ourselves, and actually having that direct communication and using that intention to be able to create, and to be able to manifest things happening, not just ask for it to happen and like kind of law of attraction try to bring it to us, but actually from us, from within, be able to put that intention into the world, and then have the result be what we were asking for or guiding that intention to be. And so that's just really, incredible to hear that you are able to get that kind of awakening and experience through the ceremonies. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, seriously, like, thank you. You were definitely like the shaman, the guide, the mentor that I've been seeking in this space, because oftentimes I show up in the depths of DMT or on a heroic dose of mushrooms, and no one knows how to tell you what to do when you get there. Everyone's like, just sit there and enjoy it, see what happens. And I've really learned from you that there's a lot more you can do in that space. And I mean, sometimes you just get there and you just have to surrender and see what happens. But I got a chance to meet some really ancient masters in some of my surrenders. I got a chance to become pure source and cosmic dust and see just like the beauty of what exists in the lack of existence, if that's even a thing. Just that, I mean, you beautifully sent me to the depths of consciousness that I had no idea that it went that deep. And now I'm like, is there more beyond that? Do we get to keep going?
Boy, I think you could go forever. I mean, the answer to that is yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, yes. You know, one of the things when I got to the Amazon that was really powerful was that I learned that the Amazonian people didn't treat ayahuasca just like an experience, but they treated it like an activity and an action. So, like something that you go into. So, you drink the ayahuasca, and then there's the onset. And then that's when they would become incredibly active. They'd be completely relaxed. They would be surrendered. They would be receiving, but they're really active in what they were doing. And then I understood that, wow, this isn't just a psychedelic trip. This is something that you get into, and with skills, you actually learn how to navigate. You learn how to move around. You learn how to have vision. You learn how to guide and direct the vision. You learn how to support the space. You learn how to set up the space for others. You learn how to open up gateways and portals to be able to travel through the visions themselves. You learn different
Mm.
realms. So there are the water realms, there's the earth realms, there's the astral realms, there's unending mythological realms that can look like, anything out of some like crazy sci-fi movie, all the way to, stuff that you would read in the book written by ancients from 5 or 10,000 years ago. There's
Mm.
all the different spaces in consciousness that you can hear about in terms of philosophy or technology or science. It's all in there. And once we get into that field, up until now, it was always explained to me as something that was truly infinite. And I've never found an end to that. It's been a constantly growing exploration. And through that activity, again, that's another way of gaining skills that ends up just becoming more and more helpful in how we continue to progress into that space. And one of the things that I did on the retreat was I really did, as you're saying, work to open everybody to that. Not everybody can go as far as you did, and everybody has their own unique individual experience. But in that, it's sort of like you get to have as much as you possibly can. So there isn't anything holding you back. There isn't anything, making that an impossibility. It isn't just lie there and have the experience, which I do, respect in its own light as a way to practice. But in our lineage, the way that we learned how to practice was in this dance. It was this dance with ayahuasca. It was this active process where we intended into it. We were alert. We were lucid. We're also in a deep kind of silent meditation. All the anxieties and fears go away as that happens. It's just even better. There's even more receptivity. And then we have the intentions, and we had the intentions for meeting with source, and we set that space for everybody before the session that was possible and something that we could all experience together. And that was really our container. And then the I am consciousness, and that really centered place in consciousness where everybody knows themselves, and then that ability to have visions and have it all awaken for us. And so right there, if you combine the I am plus source plus the visions and the awakening, well, now we're starting to be able to get into that. And then you asked me directly about navigation and how do we navigate? And we talked about focal points and really focusing consciousness through the third eye and, the frontal part of our brain, and how we get that sort of pinpoint accuracy and that invocation that goes with it. And so, as you implement those skills, and we're in that space, which is just so giving and it's so loving, then, the activation happens, and you can have experiences like this.
Mm. Yeah, and I love that you touched on something I was going to probably segue us into, which was that I don't think my experience is the most typical. Maybe typical is the wrong word, but like not everyone's ready to go. Most people aren't ready to go as deep as I love to go. And so, what are some of those experiences like for people who are having I don't know, a shallower experience, and they're like playing in the kids pool?
Well, at first it's a capacity, and it's a willingness,
Mm.
right? So you have a very unique capacity to be able to have these really big experiences and actually deal with them both physically, mentally, emotionally, and you like it and you seek it and you identify as a psychonaut and you're willing to have hero doses of mushrooms and stuff like that and actually gain from that experience. And lots of other people don't have that constitution and capacity, and they're a lot fragiler in that sense about those experiences,
Mhm.
or they become much more overwhelmed much quicker in those experiences. And so really it's about taking somebody to their limits, but not past it. When you take something past its limit, it breaks, right? If you stretch too hard
Mhm.
in yoga past your limit, you pull a ligament or you tear a muscle, you break. And, if you push a crystal glass on its resonant frequency, it breaks. And so, the idea is to not break somebody. So what we want to do is take everybody to their natural limit. And so the experiences that people have that are common in that is, well, they're going to experience the onset of ayahuasca, which can be intense. So everyone's going to have at least some kind of intensity. Like, you're going to have to breathe through it. You're going to have to relax yourself. You might feel a little lost. It might get a little turbulent mentally as it's starting to turn on. You might get doubts or fears. Um, and then there's the natural cleansing. So if you have things inside the body that need to be cleansed, as you raise vibration, those things that are of lower vibration have to come out. And so for some people, there's purging that goes along with that. But really, you can do it just through breath and relaxation, and more breath and relaxation and allowance. But a lot of people can't do that. And so it has to come out. Or they have, like, toxins, chemical residues, and stuff like that in their body
Mm.
that just also have to come out. But
Mhm.
you've already done a lot of that work, right? I mean, you can't
Mhm.
compare yourself with somebody who's doing this for like the first or second time, right?
Of
And
course.
so there's difference in that sense. So there's that, and then there's commonality that most people see geometric patterns and colors that are just phenomenal. Like, they're moving patterns. It's
Mhm.
kaleidoscopic. It's they're incredibly beautiful. You could spend a whole night just in them and be really content with that. But then there's also the manifestation of these shapes and beings within it. And some people are communicative with them. Some people call them spirits. Some people call them entities. Some people just call them energies. They don't know exactly how to relate to them. But then there's, bi-directional communication. So you can communicate with them and they can communicate back to you. I mean, one of the guys on the retreat, you remember, he said he experienced physical transplants of his body. Like, he had a knee
Mm.
replacement, shoulder surgery, a heart transplant, and got new eyes all on the same night. So I was asking for his physical healing, and that was his experience. And we're actually going to
Mhm.
get his results checked out with Western medical doctors and see how much transformation there was, how much of that was just pure vision versus how much has already manifested physically. And then,
Mhm.
can that physical manifestation actually now grow healing? Can actually create healing? Like you were saying, that idea of creating, can he create now healing? Can he create regeneration? Right before, his body was creating disintegration. It was actually, getting worse and worse. So have we actually, flipped that? Have we inverted that? And is it now healing? We're going to look at that and see that that's possible in the sessions as well. And then there are other people who completely opened up in their own way, and they saw divinity, or they saw spiral galaxies, they saw cosmos, they saw these incredible energies that people see, like nebulas, and I call them celestial beings and bodies. It's like consciousness
Mhm.
plus galaxies, it's consciousness plus stars and planets, um and so other people saw that, and it's really just opening somebody to all of that beauty to the level that they can go, and then backing off a little bit and then letting them go again, and you're just kind of building that capacity to go more and more. And like I said, fundamentally it's endless, but for people who are novices to people who have more experience, there's always something incredible going on.
Mhm. And I love how well curated, crafted that was on your part, where it was like night one, you're really easing everyone in, and by like night 3 and 4, you're telling us that that was the training for nights 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And I really needed that because my ayahuasca ceremony before I came to you was the most challenging plant medicine experience of my life. And I had, up until I came to you, not yet broken through on DMT. And I had been thrust into the depths of DMT land. And I was surrounded by all these sharp images, dark images, and these clowns with sharp teeth that I get. But then on my fourth night with you, I got to, you were like, I'm going to send you deep into DMT land. And I was like, I trust fall into you, Hamilton. And and I did. And as my purge began, I was regretting it because here were all of these clowns with sharp teeth again. And I'm like, what did I let him do to me? And then it all of a suddenly, like, as they're pulling this purge out of me, I looked at them for the first time and I was like, are you guys friendly? And they looked up at me and they were like, "Mhm." And I was like, no, fuck me way. I could have just asked the whole time. Like, because I was never scared of them. And then they went from being clowns to, like, I realized they were more like goblins. And now I'm having this whole Terrence McKenna epiphany where he's described the goblins as the gatekeepers. And then I asked them, like, are you the gatekeepers to this breakthrough? And they were like, and they were kind of like took the rest of my purge and laid me down. And then they were like, 1 minute. And then they started like opening these doors. And then the next thing I know, I'm deeper than I've ever been on any kind of DMT attempt. And like, was just like, oh my gosh, please place me here all the time. This is where I need to go. This is where I need to learn. Um, have you encountered other people with those goblins? Have you ever seen the goblins?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing. It's like there's this kind of give and take with the space and with the spirits that they test you, right? So they don't always look the way you would think they're supposed to look to have that role. They don't have the same uniforms that we've created for humans in modern society. So doctors don't always, look like they're wearing scrubs and showing up like that. And
Mm,
so I think a lot of the times they're asking you like, are you ready? And to prove that you are ready, the first thing you have to do is investigate them, like start to
mm,
interact with them. So you start asking them who, what, where, why, when, how, like, who are you, what do you do, why are you here, what's our relationship, what's going on. And you show them that you're not scared. You show them that you can still be kind of apprehensive, like, I don't know, but you look kind of freaky. You can ask them like, hey, can you change shape? Can you, like, click and be a different shape because you're kind of freaking me out.
mm,
You can work with them in different ways, but as soon as I think of them as not only gatekeepers but the gateway as well. So as soon as you sort of prove that you're ready to move beyond that space that you're in, then they become unbelievably helpful. They super supportive. They're unbelievably loving. As soon as you can show them love, they give you love immediately back. And then
yeah.
it opens up. And then when it opens up, it's like an aspect of our consciousness is opening up, right? It's not just like opening a
Mhm.
door and I went into another room of the house. It's some part of me is opening up that is allowing me a greater expansion in my own consciousness, a greater expansion in my own understanding, a greater expansion of my vision, of my visionary field, and what I'm understanding at that time. And that truly I found to be just endless. That can go on and on and on. I've never found a limit to that. And it's always this sort of game that you're in with, well, how do we move beyond here? How do we get ready to move beyond here? How do we fully explore the space that we're in? How do we relate to any kinds of entities that could be in that state of consciousness? Um, you know, and ultimately it's always come down to show them love, be honest. Ask them for that same honesty back. And if they don't want to give it, they're not the right guides, because the right guides are always going to be the
Mm,
ones that are supportive of you, helping of you, but they still may test you, right? Like a good coach will
mhm.
push you, and like a good trainer will push you even beyond where you think your mind can go. They're asking you to go into that space yourself so that that next part of your awakening can happen.
Yeah. And boy, did they. And then I got to meet all of these other beings on the other side. I mean, I sat down with this like little ancient like Tibetan monk guy. He was like smaller than me, and he just sat there and he had this like third eye design on him, and he was just like sending me all this knowledge. And there's not even words for what he was sending me, right? And then, but also in like this market like space where it was like these real teeny tiny rows or alleys, and it was just like ascended master after ascended master just lined up in this like 360 peripheral. So it was like, where do you want to go next? And then like a ball, you would just kind of like roll there when you were felt like you got enough from one master. I even got to play with his monkey too. There were so many monkeys in my in my journey. at one point I got to go to this like monkey alien world where like they sort of welcomed me and then they just did their thing, and I just got to like walk in the grass with this magenta colored sky and like
Mm.
watch these space apes do their thing. And then it was like, okay, now I'm done with that. Okay, moving on. Now I turned into a tadpole and I'm over here swimming in a lake and like learning about this over here. It was like such a profound depth of exploring things that you would never, like a way of learning about something you never knew you needed to learn about. You
Hmm.
never thought that that knowledge would expand your consciousness, but then here it is coming in and you're getting all these lessons from it. And that was wild.
On that night, how many different places did you end up exploring like that?
So on my first cup, this was ceremony night number 4 that you sent me. You mixed me, as I call it, your finest craft cocktail. Um, I the first cup really was where I did the exploring, and I
Hmm.
think I got to go to at least like maybe 12 different places.
It's amazing.
Um, yeah, and I it was so joyful for me because I've tried smoking DMT before, and you kind of get like a very limited amount of time in that space, even though it feels infinite. And this felt infinite, but at the same time, I just kept being like, I'm still here. I'm still here. It's not like
Hmm.
fading. It's not. I'm still here. Um, and then at one point, like the telepathy opened up, and I don't know if you did that. You know, we had talked about you opening the telepathy portal, but it was like, boom! All of a suddenly, some of my friends from my 10-day tour were there. One guy in specifically, shout out to Maddie, who came to me, and we did Machu Picchu together, and so we were back at Machu Picchu, and there he is sitting there telling me some more wisdoms about the interactions and connections between humans, and he's just a very profound guy like that. And I was like, wow, wait, if Maddie's here, I bet I can tap into anybody. And then I got to pull back all my friends from the tour. And then I realized, like, oh, I can talk to all my best friends. I can talk to my dog. It was like the floodgates had opened. And then I realized I could talk to everyone in the room. And yeah, have you gotten to explore those places as well? Like where some of your DMT depths taken you?
Oh, that's why I ask. I mean, I don't know how many there are. There's
Mm,
never been an end to them, and some I go back to at different times, and others I've only been to ever once. And it's sort of like you
mm,
say, you don't know what the teaching is sometimes when you're there. Most of them are really peaceful and nice. I spent most of my time in outer space or things that would be seen as sort of astral
mm,
type visions. I also have like a
mhm,
lot of experience when we're doing different kinds of healing work with the earth-based worlds and the water worlds, but in my
mm,
own preference, I end up always in outer space, something with that. So going through like black holes into other kinds of star systems, or finding portals that take you into other galaxies. And then there's, from my experience, so many different planets with so many different kinds of consciousness. I have no way to know whether there's actual physical life there or not, but there is certainly different kinds of consciousness, and
yeah.
so they're present and communicative. And so all different kinds of visions of crystalline cities and beings of light, and this kind of like really high vibration consciousness. It's societies of bliss, societies of stability and harmony, societies that have
Mhm,
transcended sort of the nastier elements of human life. So places where war no longer exists or they never had it, places with balanced, harmonious economies, places with this sort of like infinite knowledge is almost built within anything. Anything you touched just teaches you like automatically, and it's always like
ooh,
a download. It's not like when you go to a museum here and you put on the headphones so that they can teach you with words. It's like, oh, I got it, and kind of everything that we meet or experience. Or there are other realms that would teach us the healing arts for what we would share here of earth. So we would go through just vision after vision after vision of how to heal different kinds of illnesses, and then people would show up with those illnesses, and then you would know what to do to be able to help them, really through a kind of like energy healing or energy work. So things where you're
mm,
not using plant medicines, but really just you're using ikaros, you're using sound, you're using intention, uh, as a way to be able to help people. And so those were all really common. And then just endless numbers of what people call entities or spirits. There's just truly an endless number of shapes, colors, vibe, uh, intention by them, etc. So I've used to say that in a typical ayahuasca ceremony, we would work with billions of spirits, and people would think I was like just making stuff up, and either that or whatever. They're like, wait, I don't know what he's talking about. But you get into the visions, and then you start to understand there's kinds and multiplicities of them. So you can be in
Hmm.
realms where you're seeing these things that look like angelic beings, and there could be, hundreds of millions in the vision. They're just through the vision everywhere. And then you're calling on it. You're like, oh, hey, can you help these people? And so that's what we mean. So just in asking for that help to share that, and so we learn to, work with those kinds of visions, and then through the vision guide and direct that to everybody. And anything we ask for, we can start to work with. So, you want to understand more about telepathy, and so we open that for you, and that may be one session, two sessions, it may be 10 ceremonies, 50 ceremonies. We don't know how many it's going to ultimately take in terms of time and intention to manifest, but we do know that as long as we stay it, we can develop those capacities within our own brain to be able to then have those experiences. And so
Hmm.
yeah, as soon as like the portals open, and then as soon as the source opens, I think it really is truly limitless, and it's just up to us to continue to explore. And I think one of the big differences between ayahuasca and smoking DMT is that in ayahuasca, you have the chemicals associated with ayahuasca that allow the DMT to stay in the brain for much longer. And so it can
Hmm.
stay for, hours to countless hours. The longest I've ever seen is close to 20 hours, or a little more than 20 hours. And so of like real actual visions, just somebody still in visions the whole time. And so, typical is like 5 to 6 hours, and then longer is 10 to 12 hours. And so it
Hmm.
gives you a lot of time to be able to learn. And then what also is really interesting is the time distortions. So in 10 or 12 hours, it can seem like thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or just 1 hour of those 10 hours could seem like 10,000 years. And then the other hours might seem like a second. And
Yeah.
so that's also really interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first place I really got to once the gateway was open, it was this just complete dissolution of like in every which direction I'm surrounded by like these beautiful smoke clouds and like a butterfly, but like infinite symbols and spinning clocks because they were kind of the joke that time doesn't exist. Um, and it was the harder I could surrender into it and release into it, the more profound and powerful it got, the more it stretched me in like the more it allowed me to exist in more and more and more dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get that off both cups right at the beginning, but it was like this finite space of, it's the first, I don't know, like, because I discovered I went for my second cup after what would have only been like an hour and a half of taking my first, no, 2 hours after taking my first
Mm-hmm.
cup. Because I was like, should I take one? Do we have time to keep doing this? And checked someone's watch, and I was like, holy shit. Oh yeah, we've totally got time.
What was it like when you
And
drank the second cup? How did that start off? Because you already had ayahuasca in your system. So what was that like to actually ingest it?
I got nauseous faster. So this lovely craft cocktail that you made came with a lot of nausea, and my friend Rob took the same cocktail, I believe, and he and I both were like, "There's absolutely no keeping it down." And you sort of explained to me you keep down as much as you can until you've had maximum DMT absorption. So after about 20 minutes, then I'm just sitting there breathing. I'm like tapping on my sternum, trying to keep it in, self massaging to take the focus off of the pressure that's building in my belly that just wants it all to come out. So the second cup, I felt like I threw up a little faster. I was like concerned I didn't keep enough down.
Mm.
And again, there were the goblins, and actually had some fear around if I was going to get to any sort of similar space. And I did. So I got that deep space of surrender. But then, whereas on the first cup, I felt much more just like a being at the mercy of what was going on around me and discovering I was just an observer, really. to then that second cup being a bit more of an active participant in what was happening around me. And I didn't go as many places. I don't even really recall going any places except for the first deep surrender into cosmic dust. And then for some reason, I opened my eyes, and that just made it was a completely different trip. And I remember when I asked you for a second cup, I was like, "Can I do that again?" You were like, "Nope." And I was like, "What? What do you mean, nope?" And you ended up telling me like you can never do the same thing twice. So like you can't do that
No,
again, but I'll
you
I'll
can't
give
do it
you another
again.
cup.
You can have more. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I just need more. and and so it
That's
was
funny.
completely different. Like then I'm looking around and I understood why you're always talking about rainbows, because everyone was made up of rainbow colors.
Mm,
Everything I saw the beating energy through everything in a different way than I normally do on psychedelics. And then I realized that was when we were all almost functioning like a hive, where like everyone was doing their thing, and everyone was a reaction to the energy that was going on in the room, and it was like we all became one unit. And um and then I got to play in that space with my eyes open, and I've never really done that before. I got to swim with dolphins. The dolphins told me that I can just grab on anytime, and I was like, I could have been grabbing on this whole time, you guys wouldn't have cared. They're like, nope, try it. So some goals out while I'm surfing now. And then it was like I looked out into the room and I saw the field of everything in my life that was before this moment, and I saw every milestone that had happened, every massive heartache, every move, everything that had gotten me to the point where I was at that exact moment, and it was all a divine plan. And that was so powerful for me, including like the book I was reading as I went. And I went to Peru wanting to tackle my relationship with relationships because it wasn't working for me. And
mm,
I'm reading this book called Becoming by Azria and Benjamin Becker, and they talk about quantum dating and how they sort of met on ayahuasca, and um, through plant medicines and doing that together, how they created just this quantum field relationship, and now they're open. And I had been exploring like, does something like that, is that going to work for me? And but I couldn't find a way. Like my brain knew what I wanted and my spirit knew what I wanted, but I couldn't get my heart to align with it. I was like, I just want someone to pick me. And now I'm realizing what an ego based thing that was, to like need to be picked, at least for me on my journey. And
mhm,
it unlocked me. Like it showed me how that book was preparing me to receive the information that I got, especially on this retreat, of just like, I don't think I'm meant for that, at least not now in the foreseeable future. Like I'm meant to just love everybody and everything. I have so much love to give and share, and I've been so unlocked in the ceremony. And it showed me how, by in doing so, everything can just be so much happier, because now I get to like love all of these people in my life, these different partners who I was trying to put so much pressure on to like pick me, make me the one. And now instead, like we can beautifully love each other and be like, it's okay that you're going to go find someone else. It's okay that someday I'll find, but like right now in this moment, this is what's great. And how they each rise to support me in different areas. And it was almost like the medicine rolled out a roadmap for my life's work, for my life's message. I got to telepathically talk to some really big people in the world, some celebrities and
mm,
world leaders, and realize how connected so many of them are with the mycelium. And once my message is ready and I get to those certain people, their answer will be yes, to both be with me on this podcast and to have me on theirs, and to share the message and to grow the tribes together. I saw a lot of you in my visions and stuff, and how I get to rise and support you, and what this beautiful friendship and mentorship looks like. And a lot from the mushrooms and the mycelium, and just how they will continue to rise to protect me as I continue to share their message. And unlike any other experience I've ever had, like the message was so clear, the understanding was so clear, and all the things that I desire to birth creatively it showed me are just right here in the next dimension. And I just literally need to take my hands and physically make them into the third dimension because they already exist.
Hmm.
And it's given a whole new approach for me. And I mean, I'm a week out, but like it's given me a whole new approach to how I want to show up in my life and how I want to go about my days. Like I've been in such a flow now since I've been back that normally I'm always very stressed about time. My life is so scheduled, it stresses my friends out. And now I've just been much more like flowing and like, oh, there's just plenty of time. There's enough time, and it just works. It's way less stressful. I'm still not late. The money keeps coming in and showing up and aligning with the message that I received on ayahuasca. So it's just fucking profound, Hamilton.
Well, that's fantastic. That's amazing. I mean, all of those things together are just unbelievable. And what's it like
Yeah.
connecting spiritually with other substances so that the, audience understands you weren't taking any other substances, but you did connect with
Mm-mm.
mushrooms and the mycelium. So what was it like communicating with other kinds of plant medicines and psychedelics through the ayahuasca?
Well, I think I have very much been chosen by mushrooms to be a speaker on their behalf to represent them in society, and I'm grateful for that. That will always be my pure love. And ayahuasca has very quickly risen to be like, oh shit, you too, girl. So I think those two they work nicely together. And it was very interesting, yeah, to have another. They're not a plant; they're a fungi, but to have them in my visions and. Um, I don't even know how to answer your question really. It just felt like, because I'm a believer that the whole world, everything in this universe is connected through the mycelium. It's what we're created out of. It's what's in between us right now. And I would love to understand more how ayahuasca plays into the mycelium. Maybe you know the answer to that question. Like,
Well, I just found that the ayahuasca visions always allowed me to be able to communicate with everybody that I communicated with in a very natural way. And so it was
mm,
like if I wanted to communicate with mushrooms inside the ceremony, the visions would become very mushroom like and the vibe
mm,
would become very mushroom like. And it wasn't like talking through a telephone to somewhere else. It was like the ayahuasca was opening up some kind of gateway or dimensionality to mushrooms. And then that knowledge would be available. And the, what I call the spirit of it, sort of the main thing that talks with you and communicates with you when you take it, would be there. And I found that with lots of different kinds of plant medicine. So if cannabis was there, it was a completely different vibe to mushrooms. If, amanita was there, that was different to psilocybin. If kava kava was there, that was different to all of them, et cetera. It was like so
mm,
particular in the communication. It just felt like it was a way it was a way to open up channels to that communication. On a few occasions, we actually used the chants and the icaros associated with the other plants. And then it's like the whole vibe becomes, or at least for us, became as if we had actually taken the other plants or the other fungi, which we, hadn't
mm.
done. And so the ayahuasca actually, it's like it shapeshifted and transformed into as if we had, taken psilocybin without taking it. So that's why I was just asking, because I always found that to be very interesting that the ayahuasca had this sort of intra communicative capacity. And so sometimes it would, be just like just plain ayahuasca visions and those patterns. And then other times it would seem to allow the vibe or the energy of the other plants to come in and allow that communication. We just thought of it as sort of like an infinite gatekeeper that depending on the channel that you were calling, it could, form that connection and allow that connection to take place.
Yeah.
And there was just always this very like copacetic, friendly, balanced vibe between all of the different plants, because there's this culture that says that they don't get along, that you're this one or you're that one, or I just never understood that myself, because it was like, wait a second, we work with hundreds of medicinal plants and we ingest all of them and they all go into us, and on ayahuasca you can feel them all and you can connect with them. And so the cultures had created some of these different, or the tribes had created some of these different differentiators between them all. And I think we, as Westerners, experience a much more diverse, life in general. We travel more. We have capacity to do that. We're on the internet more, so we see more different kinds of information and data from the rest of the world. We have an
Mm.
opportunity, like in the psychonaut community, to actually work with different kinds of plants that are or are not indigenous to certain areas. And so I think that just opens us up to a wealth of possibility that wasn't there before. And as the years go on and more people work with this that have a deep calling, I think we're going to get more information about it. But right now, it's still really early.
It is still really early, and you've sort of mentioned that now with this last ceremony that the mission has launched. And what is that to you?
I think it's ultimately a mission around consciousness, and it has been for a long time with the plants. The plants have a really interesting form of consciousness, and we modern humans believe that consciousness is all separated. And for the people that interact with these plants, there's this kind of continuous understanding in different forms of how people talk about it that hey, it's all connected, right? And so people talk about these fields or these dimensions or this interconnectedness between everything. And I think right now for the world needs more interconnectedness. So
Mm.
there's this polarity that's going on once again. There's these tremendous conflicts that are being created societally. I personally think that society is in a precarious place and that humans are not understanding the power that they have over each other and the world itself, and that it's very important that we ascend into a higher level of consciousness, not only individually but also collectively as a species. And so to me the mission is about how plants and plant medicines ultimately interact with us and how we have a much more advanced relationship with them, how we advance our own understanding so that we can have communication and a language that we can use to describe these experiences in a way that we can really understand each other, like how math allows us to all understand arithmetic or multiplication or something like that. We need to develop this language that's associated with these psychedelic experiences, these visionary experiences, and these also great expansions of consciousness. And I think that that's a differentiator that isn't highlighted enough, that there's a difference between expanding consciousness and just having a trip. And there's a difference between expanding consciousness and going and getting healing. And there's a difference between healing physical ailments and healing mental and emotional ailments. And there's a difference between healing mental illness and healing traumas that we've been through. And that as we learn how to talk about this in a more open way, and we also learn how to develop a language around this, that the mission for me really is about supporting our own individual and collective consciousness in an expansion that's positive for each individual that's part of it, and ultimately people in general. And I would love to think that it could have an impact that would be positive for the world beyond that of just humans, and that we would see us really embrace this relationship that we have with nature, become stewards of nature, really embrace the natural world and the technological. I don't see them as being separate. I think all the medicines ultimately came out of nature. So much of our technology is based on the architecture of nature. And I just love this idea of having all of this positivity from our technological advancements and our advanced civilizations. But I think they can just grow so much more. And so I think that one of the ways that this is going to happen is in this massive expanded creativity, massive expanded innovative mind that can come through plant medicines and psychedelic experiences. And I think as we gain this intention, the mission is to really bring intentionality to that, to transcend the thought and the categorization that these are drugs that are negative or have a negative impact on people, but rather that these are medicines that can be used responsibly, or these are ways to enhance consciousness that can be used responsibly, or techniques to enhance consciousness that can be also used responsibly, and that it can be actually very positive for society and very positive individually, but to understand that that comes with tremendous responsibility, and it comes with also a tremendous need to be able to understand each other as we start to explore this more. And so I think the mission is really about awakening consciousness and supporting everybody who's part of that mission as well.
I love that. And I am so excited to support you on that mission and be I don't know what you got. I'm not a soldier. I'm an Amazonian warrior for the cause because they were pretty sexy. And
Yeah, we were talking about this before, and ultimately, this is an idea that is about growing consciousness, not expanding the kinds of consciousness that we already have. And right now, there's plenty of war, and so this is in no way about any kind of conflict or belonging in some way that isolates us from the rest of sort of our communities and societies as they are. I really look at this as that idea of being part of the plant medicine space is really about finding harmony and peace with each other. And so I'd like to think that we can transcend the concepts of war and disagreement really quickly. And part of what we can show people is that we can understand each other as community, we can communicate as community, and we can really support each other. And I think that that's the fastest way to grow. That's what the forest showed me, is that the forest really supports fundamentally the growth of the entire biosphere. And so as we embrace the biosphere together and we embrace what we are as natural elements of that, then I think we're going to have an opportunity to be able to grow very fast. And if you resonate with this and you understand that part of your life mission is also the expansion of consciousness and the exploration of consciousness, then we're all in this together, and that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And that kind of one of my newfound superpowers that I feel like I have is that the telepathy is really kind of sticking. And when I interact with people now, I feel like I don't have to say as much. And I can see that the people are understanding me on a deeper level without me having to have said twice as many of the words that I feel like I would have had to say to convey my experience. Like most people are just looking me in the eye and I'm like, oh man, I had this shift and I got unlocked. And people are like, oh yeah, I get that. And I'm like, you do? Like you wouldn't have a month ago. And yeah, even in talking to like my mom about my experience, like she's the first one to love you, mom. She's the first one to be like, no, I want to see the science. And like, oh my gosh, you can't go into the Amazon by yourself. Watch out for anacondas. Don't get kidnapped. Like, that she's actually said those things to me. But I came out and I started telling her about it, and she was just like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I was like, "My mom actually, on some level, like gets it. She just doesn't want to be like, I think I'm understanding your message, but even though you're not telling it to me." And I'm seeing that in everyone around me, so it's cool. I feel like as my consciousness shifts, everyone's, it's just having like a ripple effect on everyone around me.
Well, at first, it's awesome to have the support of your mom, and have her start to get it. I get the fears. People ask me that all the time, like, what did your parents think about what you were doing? And I said, they supported me. Like, they
Mm.
understood that I was doing something that was fundamentally important. And, everyone else goes straight to the fears and dangers. And it's like, well, we've been taught how to navigate these spaces. And yes, you can ultimately read, tales of things happening all over the world, even in our own communities, that are harrowing scenarios, and we have to learn how to navigate all of that. And so coming down to the Amazon is ultimately flying in jets into the cities that have jet runways, and then it's a well-trodden path now about how to get around. And obviously go to places that are safe and that
Yeah.
they're supportive of having foreigners there. There are a lot of places that aren't, and so there isn't a reason to go there, obviously. And
Mm.
it's just an unbelievably big place. And then this idea of you sharing energetically with people what's going on is more powerful than words, right? The chants in ceremony communicate more to people than the words do. And the whistles in
Mhm.
ceremony carry typically a frequency that really you can't even get out of or away from. It's like it's so present, and there. And so I think that you're really one, your consciousness is clearly expanded, but two, you're also communicating energetically and the emotion of it in a way that other people can understand. And I think you're talking about things that are now truly universal to them as well. Like,
Mm.
people can see this unlock in you. People want to be unlocked, right? If you're locked up, it's not a really positive state to be in. And
No.
no, and people want it. And so the ability to communicate this with less words, I actually think is better, because it takes out of the space room for confusion, and it opens a space for people to have more imagination about the vibe and the energy that you're communicating. And then sharing that as a state of consciousness is fundamentally what we're doing in the sessions themselves. That is the ceremonial consciousness. And I think it'll ultimately be even a better way. So that's awesome.
Mm.
Love to hear all of those things.
Mm. Yeah, it is awesome. I'm so excited for you doing more every month. Every month you have dates announced until February so far.
Yeah, and next month we're going to be announcing the rest of 2023. right now we're just lining up a couple other retreat centers where we're going to be working. Hopefully it's going to be out of the Sacred Valley. And then if things go well in November and December, we're also looking to expand into Costa Rica. And so
Mm.
we haven't put other retreat dates out for the year simply because we might be in some other locations. I'm really interested in doing retreats where it's based not just on healing work and consciousness work, but focusing really on the consciousness work and using the consciousness work as a way to also provide healing. And so I would like
Mm.
to do that in the Sacred Valley up outside of Cusco, in the mountains, in that energy. It's considered a power center in its own right. People come from all over the world for that reason. And then also, like, the majesty of Machu Picchu, and people then being able to,
Oh.
very easily add that to their experience with us, I think is a phenomenal concept. And so we used to hold San Pedro retreats out of the Sacred Valley, but now I'm very interested in also holding um, ayahuasca retreats. And the Sacred Valley has always been one of my sort of premier favorite places in the world. And so this is just an incredible thing that we're able to do. And yeah, I mean, the joy of doing this quote unquote work is that it's really more an honor than it is work. And to be able to do it on a monthly basis is unbelievably fulfilling. I think once you find something that you love, that's the first part in finding your own joy and bliss in how you spend your time. But then also, if you really are, called to these plants and this interaction, like I said before, they're just great in terms of the mindset and energy and vibe that they get to help create in you. And like I said, for me, they're just a great medicine, and they're, a great support for everything that I'm doing. And so for me, it's just, I'm really excited and grateful for what's coming over the next months. And I'm already looking forward to our next ayahuasca retreat in November and December.
I
Those are
bet.
going to be off the charts. That's going to be, we already now have a good vibe at Heliconia Lodge. The last one worked great. But since it was our first retreat back in a number of years there, it's always good to see that the logistics of the place work well, that the food's really good. I thought the food on the retreat was fantastic. Ayahuasca
Hmm.
safe meals are not always the easiest to create because of the different food restrictions, but I thought it was,
Mm.
incredible food, and the way we were treated at the lodge was fantastic. And so huge shout out to Heliconia Lodge for that experience, and really glad for them to be working with us.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That place was such a dream. It was like, yeah, I love that it's sort of built on stilts too, probably practically for flooding in the rainy season, but also it gave you this ability to like walk through the jungle and feel super safe. I mean, there'd be times I'd be walking back at night and a bat would like narrowly miss my head by this much. But you were like, well, if there's a jaguar down there though, I'm okay because I'm off the ground, and somehow the jaguar is not going to jump up here. And you could
Jaguar's
just
not going
really,
up on the guided walkways.
maybe. And they had these beautiful hammocks in the rooms with one wall of just like screens. So I would come back and I would lay in my hammock, and you could still be like immersed in the jungle, but like super safely and not with mosquitoes. And um, God, that place was great. You got me to swim with pink dolphins, which was my one of my primary missions there. And gosh, yeah, really great place.
Yeah, what was swimming with the dolphins like?
It happened after my third ceremony. So we tried the day before, and there were no pink dolphins. I kind of got to swim with gray ones, kind of. But then, bless your heart, you were so like, no, you have to have pink dolphins, and so you set it up for me again the next day. And the day before, it had torrentially downpoured rain so hard on us that like no one wanted to go the next day. And we had sent it pretty hard on the third ceremony. Like I wouldn't have gone if it wasn't that it was set up for me. And but I was now feeling like so in touch with nature, and like my finger was on the pulse, and I was like, oh, there's just going to be so many pink dolphins this time. And so three of us went with Val, who was our designated tour leader. And there were so many pink dolphins. Like we didn't even have to look for them. There must have been like 12 of them just in their
Wow.
usual spot. And so I just got to jump in the Amazon River and swim with them. And I think the closest they ever got was maybe within about 5 feet of me.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, which was really close. I kept hoping one would like bump into me. But they have echolocation. They're smarter than that. I get it. But
It's
there was a fish that ran into me at one point, and I like started to have that fear battle inside, where I was like, ah, that was a fish. Was it a piranha? Obviously, it wasn't a piranha. It didn't bite you. And like, what if what if there's anacondas? What if there's crocodiles? And then I was just like, okay, you could live in fear right now, or you could be swimming with pink dolphins. And I was like, okay, right. None of that stuff exists. We're just doing pink dolphins. And a delightful lesson also in detaching from fear, acknowledging when it's not really real, and acknowledging when you're tapped in enough to the world around you that like that's not what's going to happen. You know, like even here at home, we have a lot of stingray. We have a lot of stingrays that sting people, and when it's stingray season, you're supposed to shuffle your feet, and like I never do any of that. And my friends are always like, "How have you never been stung?" And I'm like, I literally just will them away from me.
Mm.
And we'll see how long that works, like knock on wood. But so far, that's kind of my animal policy as well.
I love the idea though of being able to turn off the fear, right? And
Mm,
coming back to a rational place. I think that's such an important capacity after a trigger because we get triggered all the time, but the trigger, was rational, but then what comes after it isn't. And so, the mind racing, what could happen? Yeah, those are all potential possibilities, but it doesn't mean that they're going to happen then for any reason whatsoever. And so I just love that
exactly.
idea of being able to turn that off and getting back into it. That's a great ceremonial technique because the the experience with ayahuasca and all the different psychedelics can trigger that as well. And that's usually the gateway to sort of the quote bad trip is that, that snowballs. Like the mind just won't stop, then it just keeps fixating on worse and worse things. They're not even happening, right? So that
Hmm.
idea to be able to say, oh, I don't need to go down that anymore. That's not happening right now. Let's get back with the dolphins. I think that's a just, great idea.
Yeah, it is. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. So thank you so much for joining me. And for people who are interested in your retreats, where can they find more information?
Yeah, if you would like to come and visit us, and you're absolutely welcome to. So come to bluemorphotours.com and just check out our website. And in fact, we're launching a new website in the next couple of days. So bluemorphotours.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at Hamilton Souther Official and on Facebook at Hamilton Souther Official as well. So yes, please come and join us and have this experience. And if you resonate with the stuff that I've been sharing and Barrett's been sharing, just know that that experience is available for you as well. We, take everybody's intentions really seriously and help them every single way we can. And we focus and have been for the last 20 years on providing the safest and most professional ayahuasca retreat available. So thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
I appreciate having you, and I'll double down on what you just said as well. I have never felt so held, safe, and supported by a shaman of my ceremonies. And I really thank you for that because I definitely trust fell. And you caught whatever you placed around, caught me.
Well, you're very welcome. And it was a pleasure. And I look forward to the next time that I get to share ceremony with you again. We'll have a blast.
It's coming. It's coming. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. Until next time.